Hi, I'm Peter Flynn, and I'm the owner of Bay State Perennial, and we've been here for going on 30 years. We undertook a lot of big projects this spring, so we're frantically trying to get everything done, but we're getting there. These are some of our major borders out here in the parking lot, and the borders serve a couple of purposes. First of all, they help us sell plants. They allow customers to see the plants used in a real-life setting. And also, they serve as a source of propagating material for us. So we get a lot of our sale plants from the borders by dividing the plants or taking cuttings or whatever. It's a lot of work, but I love doing it, and people love them. So. So we keep doing it. Very labor intensive. Everything here seems to be very labor intensive. We're virtually organic. We use very few chemicals, and we don't use a lot of machinery. Most of it is a wheelbarrow and a shovel. We're basically a perennial nursery that tries to concentrate on newer varieties. With a big helping of tried and true classics. We do great customer service here. We spend a lot of time with customers. We try to give them as much information as we can. I spend most of the winter making signs for the retail section that are very extensive and very helpful. And people really seem to like them. It's kind of self-serve. They can either go through, if they would rather be left alone, they can go through and read the signs and get a lot of information, or they can ask for help. And we're always ready to do that, and we never skimp on that. Would you like to see some of the greenhouse?
Sure.
Take a peek inside?
Yep.
Why don't we go over and we'll look into some of the overwintering houses, and you can see how we do store plants over the winter. These are just more borders here, and I mean, as if we didn't have enough borders, we're adding more. And so this is one that's growing here, and we hope it turns out to be a great border. And from here on in, this is all part of the sales area, all of this. And there are more borders out there. The place is ringed with borders. So, let's go down here and we'll look in some of the overwintering houses. So this is how we overwinter plants here at Bay State. It's a tent within a tent system. Just come up here and you can peek in and see what I mean. The plants are clustered in the middle of the house, and then I construct a little inner tent over those plants. And then we cover the whole house with another sheet of plastic. There's no additional heat involved. It's just an inner tent inside a bigger tent. And it works beautifully, I must say. We used to heat, and it cost a fortune, and we didn't do any better with artificial heat than without it. So this is proven. It's very labor intensive again to set up all these tents, but it works beautifully. This is the same deal, but we're starting to empty it out. So but it was the same deal, a tent within a tent. We also store plants right outside on the ground. They're covered with a special foam fabric and then a sheet of plastic. And it's a very easy way, very inexpensive way to overwinter things. And that too works beautifully. We open for the season in late April. In the past, we've been a little over anxious and opened too early and regretted it. So this year we're going to wait until I think the third weekend in April. And we often found ourselves sitting in the shed there, freezing with no customers. So, we thought this year we'd wait until it really warmed up. Perennials still seem very popular, and there are newer ones coming along all the time. We do try to keep up. It's frustrating because often just when you think you have the newest one, it turns out you don't, because you had a newer one that's come out. It's fun. We love doing it. It's a lot of work, but we love doing it. Customers are great. People are really a pleasure. We're open from the end of April through the end of September usually.
Well, I'm Harlan Bean, and this is Bean's Maple Distillery. It's not a sugar house or sugar shack, it's a distillery. We tap about, on a normal year, we tap about 2,500 taps, 2,500 maple trees. And from that, we produce anywhere between 600 and 900 gallons of syrup a year. Most of our lines, we use pipeline mostly. We don't have any buckets out this year, although we've had them out in the past. So most of our lines are on our property. Of the 2,500, probably 2,000 of our or so are on our property, and 500 are on neighbors and other people's property. It's a pretty simple task. It depends. We need the warm days like today, but we need freezing nights. Ideal temperatures for us are 25 at night, 45 during the day. And from each tap, we hope to get a gallon of sap every day. So 2,500 taps. On a good day, we get 2,500 gallons of sap. We've had a few good runs this year where we've gotten over 3,000 gallons per day. And you know, some days we get none or just a couple hundred. So most of my lines are on vacuum. It's a vacuum system that's actually sucking the sap out of the tree. We put a few less taps in, and by using the vacuum system, I don't need perfect temperatures. If it doesn't freeze at night, I can still get some sap from the trees. It doesn't hurt the trees at all. It's just like if you cut a tree and you know the sap dribbles out of it a little bit, it still heals back over and it's fine. So we have two big tanks. One is my main line, which is down off Conway Road, and we'll go collect that every day. And then I have another one up here. It's also on Conway Road, but up towards Poplar Hill. We'll go collect that, and then when we have enough syrup or enough sap, we'll start boiling. We've been doing sap and syrup for years, generations in the family, but we built this sugar house in 1987. And everybody has, you know, a sugar shack or a sugar house, and he wanted something different. So he decided to call it Bean's Maple Distillery. And it's kind of catchy and whatnot, but it's the same exact thing as a sugar house. We do the same exact thing. But that's pretty much it. We used to set a lot of buckets. Back when I was a kid, we'd set about 600 buckets, and we collect them all with oxen. I still have oxen, but I don't use them to collect the sap anymore. And we go through quite a process. When the syrup comes in, we hope to have at least 2.0% sap. That means there's 2% is sugar. This year it's been pretty good. We've had some 2.2% sap come in, and right now it's dropping as the year gets later. The sugar content drops. Right now we're about 1.6, 1.7%, which means it takes many, many more gallons to make 1 gallon of syrup. Earlier in the year it was taking just under 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. Right now it's taking closer to 50 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. We bring it in here right from the tanks. It goes through a filter process where we filter the sap. Then we run it through a reverse osmosis machine, which we can take that 2% sap, run it through the osmosis machine, and turn it into 12% sap. And that allows us to boil it a lot faster. We use much less fuel. I burn with oil. We used to burn with wood, and we'd go through about 30 to 35 cords of wood a year. And when my father was alive, he cut all that by hand throughout the year, cut it, stacked it, split it. But as he got a little bit older, that was a little bit much, doing 35 cord of wood a year, so we decided to go to oil. And having that reverse osmosis machine really cuts down how much oil we use. It also cuts down our boiling time. We can boil with this rig here about 250 to 260 gallons an hour. That's gallons of sap. So, before we had the reverse osmosis, if we had 2,500 gallons, that meant we were boiling for 10 hours straight. Now we can turn that 2,500 gallons into about 600 gallons and boil it in 2 hours. So the reverse osmosis saves us a lot. Why don't you come out back here and we'll start out back. So our sap, our raw sap comes in from the trucks when we go to collect it, comes into this tank here. Then we'll run it through that pool filter and up into that real big holding tank. And we don't like to let the sap sit very long. It's got sugar in it, so obviously with warm temperatures it'll start to spoil. So we like, when we get the sap, we like to boil it as fresh as we can, same day, if we can do that. So then once it's in there, that tank holds about 1,800 gallons. Once it's in there, it comes through here. So this is my reverse osmosis machine, and that sap, that 2% sap is coming in here, and it's getting squeezed down, I call it, to concentrated sap. So now we have, that's concentrated sap, and that is what we call permeate. It's the clean water. It's the reverse osmosis takes out the sugar water and the clean water. We use that clean water for cleaning up. And this is my vacuum pump. This is what's sucking the sap out of the trees. So that sap is coming in that top line. What it does is, the key to making good syrup is to have fresh sap daily, as cold as you can get it and as soon as you can get it boiled. And you want to cook it. You want to boil it as fast as you can. Get it from sap form to syrup form. So it comes in here and it's preheated. This steam from the evaporation is preheating our sap. Then it enters into this unit here, and this is what we call, this is our steam pan. And if you can hear, that's an air blower in the back. We're injecting air into it. The sap in here is about 200 to 210 degrees. Not hot enough to boil, but by injecting the air into it, we give it a false boil so it evaporates more. Then it comes down into our big pan, which is doing the most of the work. And there's flues in here. The sap is coming in here, and it travels all the way down, all the way back. Then it enters into this front pan. As it goes through each tray, it's more and more concentrated. This is almost syrup there. When it reaches a temperature close to 219 degrees, which it's close right here, we draw it off. So we do it manually. Some guys have automatic draw-off machines. I prefer to do it manually. I don't know why, call me old-fashioned or just plain old slow, but this batch is ready. So we'll take about 2 gallons off at a time. Today we're making dark syrup, or what's called robust. It's grade A. The old system would call it dark amber. The new system, which is universal now throughout the United States, it's grade A dark robust. And that's probably our most popular syrup. And now that it's syrup, we'll run it through its first filter process. And usually I spill some so I get to lick my fingers back. So when this finishing unit, we call it, when it gets full, it holds about 80 gallons. When it gets full, we'll put it through we'll filter it under pressure through the filter press, and either we'll bottle it in jugs for sale, retail sale, or we'll put it in 15-gallon stainless kegs or 40-gallon stainless steel drums. And from that point, the process of making our syrup is done. Then we clean up and wait till next year.
Hi, I'm Bill O'Bear. I'm one of the owners of Bear Path Compost, which is formerly Bear Path Farm. Our main activity here is making compost for use in gardens and farms and nurseries and those sorts of things. We've been in business for, this will be our 20th year, and we produce about 2,000 cubic yards of compost a year. If you can visualize your normal size refrigerator, that's about 2 cubic yards for people who aren't familiar with volume. We start with
various raw materials, or we call them feedstocks in the industry. We take material that's high in nitrogen, in this case dairy manure. We also do a little bit of food waste. We compost the food waste from the town of Whately and the elementary school. And we take these high nitrogen materials and mix them with materials that are high in carbon, like horse bedding, leaves, old hay, and we're also starting to work with short paper fiber, which is a waste product of the paper industry. So we mix these materials into, we have a recipe, we mix them thoroughly, and then we put them into what we're going to call, these are all called windrows out here. So these are compost windrows where the material is ultimately deposited. It sits for a couple of weeks or so, and then we go through what's called a turning cycle. And when we turn it with our big front end loader out there, it mixes the material, aerates it, adds oxygen, and the aerobic bacteria that are in there start to increase and multiply essentially exponentially, ultimately starting out at ambient temperature and getting up to not as high as 140 degrees. And in those temperature thresholds, weed seeds are destroyed, as are pathogens. And that's how we make it pretty much. What I might show you here is, and we can get a shot in there too, that's our storage area. This is greasy manure. Nobody would like to see this dumped in their driveway, right? This is after it's been turned into compost. It's basically smells like soil. It's great as basically a soil amendment. It's not in lieu of soil product. You use it as an amendment. You mix it in with the soil. You can use it as a top dressing in perennial beds, or around trees and shrubs, and or again incorporated in the soil for both nutrients, water retention, and also all the beneficial microbes that are in there. A teaspoon of that's going to have well over 1 million microbes that are very useful for the soil and plants. Shall we walk around a little bit? We after our compost, we just finished turning this last week, this windrow here. Ultimately, this is going to get run through a manure spreader to break up clumps, homogenizes, and then we put our surplus in here for sale directly to customers who either help themselves, or we load their trucks, as we did one this morning, or load it in our dump truck and take it off to wherever it's going. We deliver to over 50 different towns in the Pioneer Valley. I have customers or people who say, well, you don't do anything wintertime, right? No, we're active all winter. We're mixing, we're turning material. In January, we turned a bunch of windrows, and it's not dependent on, it could be 0 out here, and you could still have the interior of a windrow 120, 130 degrees. And the reason being is, as I tell people, it's like, the microbes, they're the tiny little creatures, and they live off of carbon and also some protein as well. So they're constantly breaking things down, and then they expand in numbers exponentially. Literally, there's zillions in these untold numbers in these windrows, and if you take all these tiny little bodies, and they're all eating things that are giving off heat, just like we're 98.6. They're cumulatively creating a tremendous amount of heat, which ends up eventually working its way out of the windrow, and in the process it destroys weed seeds and kills pathogens. So and they're actually very good for the soil and for plants. Normally these windrows would be a little hotter. After we do some turning, they will. So if you can get a shot of this, this temperature gauge is reading about 106 degrees. And what is it outside now? 48, 47. So it's quite a bit higher. Once this gets turned, the temperature is going to go up. And you might be able to see some of the heat in here, but Mike's going to dig into it. See that? Can you get that?
Yep, we got it.
And when he turns it, there'll probably be a big plume. And this is actually not terribly hot. Sometimes there's so much steam coming out that I have to wait a second for it to clear to see what I'm going to do. So why don't you take a little bite in here over there somewhere, Mike, see what happens. You can see it's pretty hot. And this is in the very early stages of composting. This product won't be available till late summer, early fall, or something like that. Well, we've got, you know, a few more turnings before it's actually ready. And interestingly enough, as we turn this material, it actually shrinks. We have about a 45 to 50% reduction in volume from start to finish. And actually, what we're doing is giving off the material is broken down. As these little creatures metabolize it, they exhale carbon dioxide just like we do. So in a sense, this is giving off a lot of carbon dioxide, but it's no different than if this material was spread on a field somewhere and just naturally was broken down by soil microorganisms. Now, one thing that we are doing is we are judiciously composting some materials that would end up in landfills, like a little bit of food waste. We do more, but tends to be a trash problem with that. And we are starting to work with short paper fiber, which is a result of recycled paper and it ending up in the would normally end up in landfills. So this material, those sorts of materials, if they end up in landfills, they actually produce methane gas from anaerobic bacteria, which is 23 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So it's much better to compost it than just bury it somewhere. And that's pretty much what we do. We make compost. We have lots of people buying it, and
about 7 months from start to finish.
You deliver?
Oh yeah.
You deliver.
We deliver all over. But as I said, we've been to over 50 different towns, and we have people coming. We have people call from the eastern part of the state, but we just don't go out that way. We maybe go as far south as Springfield, and we have about a 25-mile radius.
Keith Bardwell, Brookledge Sugar House. I've been at this for a long time. I started when I was 10 years old, not obviously this big, but on a much smaller scale, and I have, over the years, it's a hobby of mine that I've never given up. I enjoy it. And so from 1974 is when I started with a neighbor of mine making just a couple of gallons on an open pan, and it slowly progressed into where I am today, which on an average year I'm making a little over 500 gallons of syrup per year on an average year for me. I have about 1,200, a little over 1,200 taps this year, which is about where I'm always been in the last few years. I run a vacuum system, which gives me a very good amount of sap per tap. With the older style, when you just hung buckets out, you didn't get anywhere near as much sap per tap as you do nowadays with a good vacuum system. The vacuum, the pipeline, it is doing all the collecting for me. So when I come home from work or get ready to boil, the sap is all collected here waiting for me. I don't even have to go looking for it. I can show you the syrup that's being made today as it's getting ready to be drawn off. This up here is an automatic draw off, which measures the temperature of the syrup. The syrup boils at 7 degrees above the boiling point of water, so that at any given time during the course of a day, I have the barometer up there where I can set the temperature to draw off at. and the syrup will come off when it's ready. Hydrometer is actually very, very accurate, and if you come in a little closer, you can see there's red lines on that hydrometer. The top red line, if it was to float right at that red line, that would mean it's syrup. It's not floating quite at that level there. You can see it's sinking down. It's sinking down a little bit below that. So where I drew off right here isn't quite ready, but so when that floats at the when it does float on that red line, then that's another indication that the syrup is ready. After the syrup is completed and drawn, I can show you where I have in here. The syrup comes in here, and this is my finishing pan where I'll get it all hot to the point where I need to run it through a filter press. And what the filter press does is it filters the syrup. It takes out the impurities, any of the solids from the minerals that are in the syrup. Like that sample jar right there, that is unfiltered syrup. You can see it's cloudy. If you was to take it and put it next to if you put that next to you can see that one is cloudy and this one is much clearer. It's this has been filtered and this has not been. That was just a sample I pulled today of what I made. You take a sample of your syrup and you would put it in and you hold it up to light. And I know with the camera you're not going to be able to see, but you would look through there and that's a method of grading the syrup based on how dark it is. As the season progresses, the syrup tends to get darker, stronger flavor, to the point where you're making your cooking syrup near the end of the year. Your light syrups aren't going to have that strong flavor to it, so that if you use a light syrup in for cooking, you're going to be disappointed because you're not going to get a real strong maple flavor. After it's been filtered, then it's ready to bottle. I store in kegs I use. Also from there, as soon as it's been filtered, it can go right into the individual bottles like that are right behind you, or any of these. These are this is syrup that's been bottled and ready to be sold. Quite frankly, I don't feel that the type of fuel you use has any impact on it. I mean, many of the old people would all say they liked wood-fired because it gave it a different flavor. Well, the wood, as you can see, I'm burning wood, but there's no smoke that comes. If you had old pans where your smoke rolled around and got into the sap, that would maybe affect the flavor. But whether you're using oil or wood, in my feeling is it doesn't affect the flavor at all.
Tom Olofsson, I'm the production coordinator here at Enterprise Farm in Whately. It's mid-March, so this is the sort of the first greenhouse that we start production in. The Enterprise is a 120-acre organic vegetable production farm. We have a CSA that's anywhere from 500 to 700 members. We're trying to keep it at like 500. So we do wholesale too. We do direct store delivery to Whole Foods, and we have other various wholesale accounts. So we have it's sort of a complex operation as far as like doing a farm plan for all those three factors, all those three facets of the farm. So but this is basically how we start production. Everything is seeded in flats that either have 98 or 128 cells. They get big, then we take them out and transplant them in the field. Think about Enterprise, we have fields all over, sort of like in a 5-10 mile radius in both Franklin and Hampshire County, which makes it kind of a challenge because they're of various sizes, anywhere from like a half acre to an acre to like 10 acres, 11 acres. I think there are like 26 different plots now that we have, so we have to, obviously when you do an organic farm plant on a yearly basis, so you have to follow a sort of 3 to 5 year rotational system for the crops. So you can't plant the same crop in the same field year after year, or even like 2 years afterwards. So that's part of the challenge, is sort of assigning each crop to what field when you have so many crops. Probably plant maybe 30 varieties of different things, of all sorts of vegetables, from brassicas, tomatoes, things like fennel, root vegetables in the fall, which is especially popular for the CSA. So the greenhouse is where it's all the production starts and pretty much ends too. This is pretty much the first seeding for various things. Like, we do a lot of kale, obviously. Every organic farm does a lot of kale. So this is kale, dandelion. I just seeded some tomatoes down there too for the first time for the greenhouse that we have over here, where we do greenhouse production. So what else? Kale, we got some dandelion too. We're seeding broccoli today. So we're right at the start of the season. This is what a farm looks like in March, basically, right before.
Dandelion, as in the weeds that nobody wants in their lawn.
Yeah. Well, it's a special kind of variety. A lot of people, we sell a lot of dandelion. Actually, you'd be surprised. We also, since we have a lot of Jamaicans who work here during the summer too. We grow callaloo, which is something that it's a big crop a greens crop, sort of similar to dandelion. And I see, what else does this kind of? It's kind of like it's a green, stir fry with onions and garlic. Yeah. So that's sort of the interesting thing about the valley, is that there's so many Jamaicans around, and callaloo is such a big crop that it's like, callaloo is almost specific to this area during the summer, where it's like nowhere else other than Jamaica. So that's sort of a small fact. We start everything here in Greenhouse 3, and then we expand to the other two. We've got 2 greenhouses there. 3 on the other side.
So these are put out in the field?
These will eventually be transplanted into the field. So everything starts here, except for the things that we direct seed, like carrots, chard, squash, etc., like that. So
can you do it with a machine or a truck, or do you have to hand?
No, we have a specific, it's called the transplanter, that is towed behind a tractor, where 2 people or 3 people, depending on the crop that's being transplanted, sort of sit low to the ground and, plop it's called plugs. Once these get big, they're called plugs. So you'll have little tray carriers like this, and so you'll sit kind of low and you'll stick them into the ground. So you've seen the black plastic in the fields? Yeah, so you go through that and you punch holes into the plastic, and then the tractor goes over that and the people drop the plugs in. It's an interesting system.
Well, this is our farm store. This time of year, in the winter, we are partnering with local and regional farms. So our produce is coming from all over the East Coast at this point. We have sweet potatoes here from North Carolina. We have some eggs cage-free eggs from Vermont. We have some butternut squash from Vermont, some celery and peppers from Florida, potatoes from Canada. So we have things from all over the spectrum. We even get some citrus this is from California. We try to get it from Florida, but we can't always get it from there. We're kind of like a distributor, partnering with local and regional farms. During the summer, it's all of our own produce that we grow, unless we're bringing in specialty items such as apples from local orchards. So we're about halfway through our our winter share now, so this is a good idea of what we have this time of year. We get some greens from Florida, lettuce and kales, cabbage as well. This is a really great local company that grows their own mushrooms right in Hadley, right down the road. We have a lot of produce from Red Fire Farm, like this parsnip. CSA members will come to the farm and they will pick out their produce. So they can pick out whatever they want when they're at the farm. They get a dollar amount. We call this the market share. And so depending on their size, they can just pick out whatever amount of produce as long as it equals that dollar amount, and we have prices on everything. Or people have the option of choosing this list. If they were to get delivered their farm share, this would be what would be in the box. But since they're coming to the farm, they don't have to stick to that list, although some people do. Or they start off with the list and then they might switch something out if they don't like it. Also, our CSA members who pick up at the farm have the option of going out in our pick your own garden. And we have everything from all different types of bell peppers, hot peppers, specialty peppers, heirloom tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, regular tomatoes, flowers, herbs, all different things that people can pick from our pick your own. And that is a huge reason why people come here, because most of our CSA members will preserve food, and so they can really get a bounty out of their especially out of their summer share.
You know, it seems like every time you go to work with the bees, you're going to get stung. Because when you're picking up the frame, and there's usually bees are crawling around. This is why you have a smoker. And a smoker is only to calm them down. And when you smoke the bees, you give them a few puffs of smoke, okay, into the entrance. So you go up to the hive, and you go like that. And the smoke goes in there. The bees actually go towards the honey, and they fill up on honey. And they can't bend over with their stinger to sting you. Now, not all of them are going to fill up on honey. There's going to be a few stragglers. So when you actually pick up a frame, they're walking along the top of the frame. There's going to be one that, you know, gets on your hand, and all of a sudden he just wants to sting you for some reason. So he stings you on your hand. You get one on the palm, you know. But it's good for you because it prevents arthritis. You know, that's why people will go to beekeepers that are licensed to work with people that have MS, multiple sclerosis. They give them a bee sting. And the venom in that stinger is sort of like an inoculation, but for some reason, the venom in it will help them to walk. Mainly, this is where I do all my extracting when it's time for the season. This is the uncapping tank where I do the framework and, you know, all the frames. And you can see I've got boxes up here where I store where this is a good example of where the bees store the honey. All right. And right now there's no honey in it now because this was last year's. This is called an extractor. All right. And the frame, once the honey's on here, the wax capping is off. It goes right inside, right in here. And what it does is when you turn it on, it turns, and the centrifugal force, so that it just takes the honey right out and it goes right into this tank. Now, this here tank is a holding tank where after you process the honey, it goes inside here and it accumulates in here, and then I take it out of here. I have a spigot here which I can draw it off and do my bottling and so forth. This is the bee suit, if you want to get a good shot of that.
what a beekeeper wears. There's different styles. There's different, protectiveness. There's gloves that a beekeeper uses. Pry bars for prying, because once the bees start producing honey, and they love to seal things up tightly. I mean, it's like you can't even get it off. You can't even pull this off. So this is what this is used for. So when you take that cover off, you just jam it like that, and you pull that cover off, just like that. Okay? Now, the frame goes in here, just like that. And this is the entrance, okay? This is your bottom board. This is a hive body. And this is called the outer cover. I do everything in here. You know, I build all these. Well, I don't build the wooden parts. It's easier to get them manufactured. I could build them here, but it would just take too much time. So it's easier for a company that are set up to do it every day, and that's what they do. And if I run out of parts, this is what I do, you know. So it's amazing what these little creatures, these little bees will do. And these little nests, these wasp nests, are just kind of my decoration, my, you know, kind of makes it kind of a...
They have nothing to do with beekeeping.
No. Those are wasps. Those are wild wasp nests I get in the fall time. The honey from the stores usually comes from a foreign country. China. China is one of the biggest producers of honey. They import so much honey here that they can sell it for 18 cents a pound. You cannot buy water for 18 cents a pound. And the people that are buying it are your cereal companies. The thing about China is it's not 100% honey. They add corn syrup to it. So it's an additive, so when you think you're getting real honey, you're not getting real honey. Once you process it, you spin it out, you filter it through to get all the bee parts. Because in honey, when they store the honey, there's going to be all kinds of different material matters, like maybe parts of old, I don't know, maybe, you know, dead bees that maybe had fallen or something, and they somehow got mixed into that, you know, into the honey. When they stored it into the cells, you're going to find particles of that and debris, and once you spin it out, you'll be able to see it all in the filter bag, you know.
My name's Alan Sanderson. I, along with my brother Brad and my son Jake, run this farm here. We do about 2.5 acres of flowers and 1/2 acre of tomatoes, where we grow the tomatoes, actually harvest the tomatoes and sell them to local stores. Right now we're doing both. We got the flowers going. Most of them have been planted already. They should be ready for Mother's Day. And the tomatoes will be ready about the middle of May. As far as how long Fairview Farms has been here, we started on this property with the flowers in 1984. But Fairview Farms has been in Whately for, well, my son's the 9th generation farmer in Whately, a Sanderson farmer. It started as a small dairy farm, it grew into a larger dairy farm. Back in the early 80s, mid 80s, we grew a lot of tobacco, which was for cigars. That market has since dwindled. We got more and more into the flowers and greenhouse vegetables like the tomatoes. We also do about 100,000 mums every fall. This is a house full of geraniums, which will be ready again for Mother's Day, which is in about 6 weeks. And we'll take a walk through and see what else we got. This house here is full of million bells. They're all on a bench, and hanging up will be fuchsias, and they're a big time Mother's Day gift, and they will be ready for Mother's Day. Doesn't seem possible, does it? And what you're looking at here is New Guinea impatiens with Dracaena in the middle. It's in a 12-inch patio pot, and there's about 5,000 of these right here. As you can see, these are all on benches, and we do that to save room. There's one alleyway for every 30 feet. And if you want to get over to that side, you just crank the whole bench right over. Now you can get down that side. So we save about 30%, or we get 30% more growing area by having only one alleyway. In a normal greenhouse, you'd have an alleyway in between every bench. In another few weeks, all these 10-inch baskets here with the hooks on them will be big enough they'll need the space, and they'll all be hung up in these areas. It'll be about 2 more weeks. So we'll have product on the benches and hanging up. This is our tomato house. These tomatoes were seeded back in January, about the 4th or 5th of January. They were transplanted into these buckets about the 1st of February. And in 2 months' time from now, which will be about the middle of May, we'll be picking tomatoes. And we'll continue to pick tomatoes until about the middle of July. So we get 2 months of picking out of here. These plants will actually touch the pipes above them. They'll grow 10 feet tall. And then we break off the top to stop them from growing. The last 2 weeks of picking, we're on step ladders. That's how we pick them. We use a lot of biological items for controlling disease and pests. You can see the grasses that are hanging up around the house. They have parasitic wasps in them that run around. All they like to eat is aphids. So we don't ever have a problem with aphids because of these little wasps. You can see them with the naked eye, but barely. And they just go around and take care of all our aphid population. These guys here, they're going through and they're taking off the suckers. He's going that way. So let's go down the other end. We can see them better. These here are suckers, and they just keep coming. Every week we got to go through this whole house and break off these suckers. Otherwise the plant, all the energy of the plant goes into the suckers and you won't get any tomatoes. There's a sucker here. So they break them off and throw them away. They also have to clip up the tomato. And we use these plastic clips. And you can put one on here. And that'll keep the tomato from falling down, especially under the weight. Each plant is going to have over 20 pounds of tomatoes on it. And that much weight without these clips would be right on the floor. There's 4,000 plants in here.
And then how many greenhouses?
Well, we have this one is a ½ acre. We have the big one with the flowers in it. That's a ½ acre. And then there's about 1.5 acres of small greenhouses if you add them all up. One thing I failed to mention was these tomatoes. We get 2 crops a year out of it. So we'll have a crop this spring, which will go until the middle of July. Then we completely disinfect, throw away all these plants, start new ones. Around the 4th of July, we transplant out here in about middle of August. And in the middle of October, we're picking tomatoes again right up until just past Christmas. So you can get actual fresh tomatoes at Christmas time.
What do you distribute to?
We do a lot with Black River produce out of Vermont, Atkins, Pure Foods, River Valley Market, Whole Foods, Millstone, most of the small grocery stores around here, as well as a few out in the Boston area. Wilson Farms takes quite a bit from us. Randall Farms down in Ludlow takes quite a bit.
Well, last year we made 400 gallons of syrup and sold 10,000 gallons of sap. So we're right around 600 gallons of syrup. It started as a hobby, and I guess so it's like 12 hours a day, 7 days a week out here, but that's just the way that is.
The sap comes you burn, right?
Yeah, it's like when you got to make hay when the sun shines, Jim. You know how, you ever heard that saying before? You got to boil sap in the springtime when it's there, because you can't let it sit around because it spoils. Because what happens is the sugar in the water creates a bacteria, makes darker syrup, and eats up the sugar. Just that simple. All my lines come off North Street. I have a tank at Sanderson's, and I have a tank down at my son Chris's house. And all the lines come down into a high volume vacuum that doubles the production. There's about 6,000 taps that we produce for. So.
And no more buckets.
Oh my God. My leg, I couldn't do it. It's just one of those things. If I had nothing else to do, Jim, yes, I could probably do buckets, but it's just, now I started at 5 o'clock this morning checking my tanks. They were running. One of them was running on the ground, and one of them was full. Had to start collecting, so I had to start collecting sap, and I've been at it since. So, I made over 60 gallons of syrup today. So I've been putting it up in barrels, putting up in stainless steel barrels, because it's one of those things. It's a wholesale market. Sometimes some stuff you have to wholesale, and you would never put it in stainless steel plastic containers to wholesale out on a volume. A day like today, I had 6,000 gallons of sap to get rid of today. So this is the first day I've ever made 5,000 gallons of sap through my sugar.
Like Williams, they'd like to get the extra sap so you can run all the time.
Oh yeah.
So even when the sap isn't running, they can still make syrup because they put it back to them.
Well, and they'll have bus tours come through, and this Williams Sugar House is in the business to make steam. They make steam, it draws the public in because they're right on Route 5 in Old Deerfield. And that's what sells the syrup. One of the biggest operations we have sits right out there. See that green light through that window? Reverse osmosis. It takes 2% sap that's coming in, like it comes out of the trees, and takes half the water out of it, and we're boiling 12% concentrate in the evaporator. What it does is we don't have to burn as much wood because we never get rid of it in a day. 24 hours. It takes this evaporator from making 2 gallons of syrup an hour to 12 gallons of syrup an hour, pretty much.
That's great.
Oh, it's it's electricity, but it's a machine. It's an expensive machine, but it's
saves a lot of time.
Oh my God! And wood. Even if the wood doesn't cost you anything, you still got to put it on the pallets and process it and get it ready to go and get it in here. So.
You made a whole barrel of soup?
I did. I made a barrel of soup.
Hello, my name's John LaSalle, and our family owns LaSalle Florists here in Whately. We've been in business here since 1934. Started by my grandfather, and we are a traditional retail florist shop, but we also grow a lot of cut flowers primarily, and we grow annuals in the spring, and we grow about 4 acres of outdoor cut flowers in the summer. This time of year we're growing freesia as our main crop, which we'll see in the greenhouse a little later. We're also starting to bring in our Easter plants, and we have other cut flowers started, and we're starting our annuals. So we'll take a look out in the greenhouse out here. We're getting ready to plant our annuals for spring sales, and these are some coleus that we'll be having for sale in May or so. So out here, this is our main, one of our main growing areas, and we also use this for retail space. This greenhouse was built by my grandfather in 1934, so it's a little over 80 years old right now. You can see we've got Easter lilies and some other Easter plants in here. Also, we're growing asters, stock, dianthus, and snapdragons for cut flowers, which will be blossoming in May. We do Easter plants for about 35 different churches in the area, and the plants come from all over. We gather them from different sources so that they have a good selection available. Yeah, we're just at the end of our season growing freesia, and these are our main winter crop. This is freesia. We've been growing freesia for at least 45 years here. And we wholesale this to different places all around New England. We also sell to a lot of the local markets like Whole Foods, River Valley, Foster's, State Street and Cooper's. And we're pretty famous for this. This is one of our best crops. We have a lot of people that come in just for the freesia. These are grown from a bulb, and we save the bulb and condition them from year to year. The plants are actually native to South Africa, and their dormant period is hot, dry summer, So they fit in really nice with our cool winters in here. We can keep them to a minimum temperature, and they like our particular spot here. These old glass greenhouses really are perfect for their growth conditions.
Warm in here.
Yeah.
Tropics.
Yeah, we rent plants for functions, a lot of them to UMass and for different things. So we're going to be renting a lot of palms out for churches next week for Palm Sunday.
Oh, so you kind of grow them and then take them back.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Never thought that was a night.
Yeah, we for a lot of functions over at UMass when they have a speaker in or they have a stage, you know, they want to decorate.
This is Nasami Farm. We're part of New England Wildflower Society. That's been one of the oldest national plant conservation groups. Started around 1900. We acquired Nasami Farm. It's one of our sanctuaries. We have about five to 7 of them around New England states. What's unique about Nasami is it's also our native plant nursery. So we grow native plants from mostly from wild collected seeds that we collect ourselves. These are common native plants that we propagate here in the greenhouses. We sell them in our retail area up here at the building, and then we also sell them for contract growers who are doing restoration work and people who just want to. We have like meadow kits so people can kind of create meadows in their lawns and things like that. So I can give you a walk around the property. So this was originally owned by the Augusts, who had a Christmas tree farm and trees and shrubs, and they still live about a house or two over, and so it was kind of transferred over to New England Wildflower as a property. It's about 75 acres. It goes all the way down. This is our prop house where we have it all heated up, and I can show you what we're doing inside there if you want to take a look. So these are some of our harder to grow natives. So we do some research in trying different techniques to get them to propagate. This is some of our like mountain laurels and ericaceous. We've got some blueberries. This is the pitcher plant, which is not up yet, so you can't see it, but it's a bog plant. A lot of these need a cold period of stratification, so we'll sow them in December, keep them in a cold greenhouse, and then we just moved them in here about a month or two ago, and they started sprouting, coming up. You can see right here, these guys, for instance, some grasses. And then what we do is we then divide these out into plugs to grow off, and I'll show you that. These are all of our milkweeds that our monarch butterflies love. Oh, is it getting fogged up from the heat in here? We have to acclimate a little bit. So in early March, we start thinking about what we're going to propagate, and we bring in the flats that we want to start into the warm greenhouse, and everybody starts germinating. These are some flats that are germinating. And then we have a crew of volunteers and interns and staff that will divide all our seedlings into plug trays. Watch that, yeah. I'll give you a little example of that over here. Here's Kate, our intern this year, and she's grading out Tiarella cordifolia, which is a foam flower. It's one of our woodland natives. And so we put them in these little plug trays, and they all get labeled for the job is color coded, and we grow them off. I believe last year we put out about 50,000 plugs, so about 50,000 of these guys to our custom growers and our retail. We supply, like I said, our retail, and we also supply Garden in the Woods, our horticulture department, with plugs. They're in the middle of redoing the whole garden, so we're growing a lot of that off for them, of native plants. We collect the seeds from wild populations. We get permission from the landowners. They're all common plants, so we don't touch any of those rare species.
You've got fantastic germination.
Yes, it really worked out well this year. We were seeing a little bit of troubling mold, so we pulled, because they like to be under the shade a lot, so we pulled them out to kind of dry them off a little bit. But yeah, and we bottom water with rainwater, we found, for these guys, just for these special guys. Most of them we have wells, but. And yeah, just check out our retail space up there and see what we do. We also offer classes and workshops, both here and at Garden in the Woods in Framingham. Follow me in here. So, yeah, take a look at our high-tech ferns. So we're just starting to acclimate them to a lower humidity, and that's why we have these little mini hoop houses that we open up and allow the humidity to escape for a certain number of hours per day, and then we increase it every day by a little bit to get them ready to be transplanted back down to the greenhouses. All kinds of fun things, microscopes to check them out. And this is where we do our workshops, and we have them. And this is our garden shop, which is just starting to get inventory in. We'll have books and pots and locally made items, as well as all of our plant material. And that will be opening April 30th for the season.
Hi, my name is Tim Nurse, and I'm one of the owners here at Nurse Farms. We're at 41 River Road here in Whately, and this is our 47th year in business. We started the farm in 1968, was our first year we planted. Today we'll be looking through several aspects of what we're doing here at Nurse Farms, and we're starting here today in the shipping room, where we are preparing, because we produce strawberries and raspberries, and we sell blueberries, rhubarb, asparagus as part of our catalog items that we sell. So this is the fulfillment area where our packing crew packs orders, and you can see they go on for the FedEx, where the FedEx truck comes daily to pick up the packages. On Monday we usually pretty much fill up a trailer load of packages. So here's an example of a packing list here for a customer. You can see with the bar coded here, and so as a result they can go right up with there, and they shoot it with a gun, and that brings up the customer up here, and therefore the plants are put in the box, and close the box, put on the scale, they hit the thing, and it goes on the pallet, and those will. We're shipping for Monday. We're preparing boxes to go out Monday right now, because we have a lot to do. We can't do them all one day, so we're starting on Wednesday, Thursday. We start shipping for the following Monday. All these little boxes will be going to home gardeners, and right now we're shipping into like Arkansas, North Carolina, the southern states, but then 65% of the business goes to commercial growers, and about 35% of the business is distributed to other wholesalers, other catalog companies who have strawberries and raspberries in there that they offer, but they buy them from us because they don't grow them themselves. We're now in the plant packing, in the packing house, where we're actually preparing strawberry plants for shipping. So all of the plants you see on the floor here were dug. We finished digging yesterday, so they were been dug here this spring already, and so they kind of shake out the soil and then they fork the plants on the benches where the individual packers take and sort the plants for shipping. Here's a bundle of 25 plants. So you see how they're all uniformly graded, and all the broken plants or the small plants are discarded in the waste. And there's a box, and there's 40 bundles in a box to make 1,000 plants in a box. Right now we're packing between 230 and 280,000 plants a day. This will continue until about the middle of May, when we'll be finishing up the packing, and then this crew will go outside and pick berries. So we've been doing this strawberry packing since the 12th of November. So we packed all winter, and because we dig in November, December, and then we dig again in the spring. So the next part on our tour, we'll be going into our greenhouse operation, and with the greenhouse operation, all the plants that come out of the tissue culture lab grow into the greenhouse to grow roots on them. So there's these little pieces of tissue like we'll see in the lab, which we saw in the lab, and then we'll see them in the greenhouse, the different stages as they go. We have about 3 acres of greenhouses that we use as part of our plant production, and the facility produces about 1.2 million plants a year. In this greenhouse we have 7 different zones, so for each zone to provide the ultimate conditions for those plants in that stage. So over here you can see these are plants that have just have come out of the lab. These were just planted just 4 days ago, and they're still haven't. Well, let's see. They still have not started to root yet. Let me make sure I get those back. But it takes a few days for the initiation of the roots. And this plant here was planted also on the 16th, and you can see how this little plant has gotten roots. These are strawberry plants. That color light is the best color for growing strawberry and raspberry plants. These are that new technology on lights.
That's what I see off the highway.
Yes.
It's like looks purple.
Yes. Yeah. There's a place down the other side of Whately.
Down south and
yeah.
Kind of right.
Yes. Yep. That's Full Bloom Farm, and they grow herbs and stuff. But we have it's the same color. So obviously that's for the crops we grow, because you can change this from red to white color just by going to the computer. As the humidity gets to a certain level, the misters come on automatically. We have bottom heat. The heat is right here on the bottom, so you have the heat right where we want to grow the roots of the lights, and then you see we have shade up there, so with the shade we can control the heat in here so it's not too hot and dry. And then above the shade we have it's called a thermal curtain. So coming in December, it's 4 o'clock, 20 degrees. The thermal shuts, holds the heat into the greenhouse. So there's all these automated systems for making labor savings and making these plants as happy as we can. Plant roots, particularly strawberry and raspberries, they don't like it really hot and humid. They want a cooling, more cool. So these are off of the bottom heat and that high humidity after they got rooted. Then in here, they come in here to push them along to get to completing the growth cycle. So you see plants in here at all different levels. You also see one of our automatic waterers there, and that's also on the computer, and that machine goes along this track and to help us complete the watering. Because we have plants at different stages of growth in here, we still have to hand water so that we have the evenness of the watering, but we can use that boom to get everything wet in a hurry or in a regular period of time because we can get over the ground faster than with hand waterers. This is another growing zone that we're in. As you can tell, it's cool. Yeah. So these plants now, these are all finished. So they are, you see they've got a nice ball of roots, and these are ready to go to the field. They're almost ready to go to the field. But in here, it's cooled down, it's soft, the extended growth, the soft growth is hardened so that when we get ready to plant in April, these plants will be hardened off and ready to go into the field. Here we're in a different section of the house, and you can tell by the temperature in here we are hardening everything off, and because these plants are very close to being able to plant. So with these blackberries, then there's a well-defined root plug, so and we're just finalizing the hours of chill and the hardening, and this bench of plants is scheduled to, as soon as they have enough hardening off, they'll be shipped to California. So when we built this greenhouse, the Conservation Commission, because we're close to the ditch, asked us where all the water from the runoff would go from this greenhouse, because with a 1-inch rain on an acre of ground is like 15,000 gallons. So as a way to accommodate the runoff from the greenhouse, we built this tank that holds the water from the runoff, and so when the tank is full after a rain, then we're not buying water from the town to water the plants. So we're collecting the runoff and using it for the watering of the plants. So this machine here takes and it fluffs up the soil, and then it's like a sausage maker, and it pushes the soil into this fiber material and seals it. You can buy them like this, but it's cheaper to buy your own machine and make them. And so in a tissue culture lab, there are 3 sections. There are 3 parts to a lab in the tissue culture lab. Right here, we're in the production area. In the production area, we mix the medium, and in the medium has all the growing requirements that plants need to grow, plus different hormones and so forth. These units here are autoclave units, and an autoclave unit sterilizes the containers to reduce contamination of the cultures. The autoclave period is at 250 degrees for 20 minutes. It's kind of a light autoclave, but it works in the process of removing different agents that would cause contamination of the cultures. So this is the growth room, and as you see, this is a sizable space, and in the growth room there's the lights to have 16-hour days, because strawberries and raspberries are all long day plants. They grow the best on 16-hour days. So there's automatic lights that turn the lights on and shut the lights off, so it's dark for 8 hours, but it's light for 16 hours. This container here happens to be strawberry plants, and you can see the clumps of plants in there where they have started to grow. They grow into clumps, and they would be also ready for transferring. Now if you look in there, these were just transferred. Here you see they're just starting to grow into the clumps, and so these would be transferred in probably another 2 weeks. And one of the considerations with agriculture, we only produce about 10 or 15% of the people who because each one of us feeds 150 families, each farm in the U.S. So the 1% of us are farmers. So all the arts and science, pathology, entomology, plant breeding are all going to come from people who are interested in these as careers. But there's a lot of careers, and it's very challenging. It's very challenging, types of careers to be involved with. So.
All right, so this is Poplar Hill Farm. This was a dairy farm while I grew up until '98 when my father sold the cows. We always had a small beef herd, so beef is what we got into. The farm kind of limped along. My brother and I were still pretty young. As we got older and took more interest, ended up with more cows. Now we have a herd of 65. We have 32 brood cows. That means cows that have a calf every year. So that's 32 babies every year. We'd like to get up to a herd of 150 to 200 animals in the next 5 years. Be able to have 50 finished animals a year, 50 or so brood cow, mother cows. To feed the 60 cows, we grow 40 to 50 acres of field corn every year. We make round bales, we make dry hay. We sell dry hay to a few large horse farms in the area. It's a lot of work, and between this and Bear Path Compost, I'm a pretty busy guy.
My name's Melanie Chorak, and this is Potash Hill Farm, and those are the goats. And generally we breed every year, but this year we're not. I lost the goat, my buck, a couple of years ago, so we don't have any babies this year. But that's when we, they get milked, is after they've kidded. So need a buck, and so probably this fall I'll rebreed, and then I freeze the milk. I use the fresh milk, but then I also have a surplus of milk that I freeze for the following year, so that's how you stay ahead of that. Only 3 have bells on, and that's so I can find them. And also,
they generally travel in a pack.
Oh yeah, they always stay together, and they have the bells on. Hopefully, it keeps the predators away, which thank God that's worked. So that's why they.
Not many animals like.
Yeah, but some of them lose their bells, so. Yeah, and then I just found one that's been lost for like 3 years. I just found it the other day. I milk the babies in that little white-capped, not the babies, the mothers, the does, and there's a divider in there, so the babies stay on one side at night, and then in the morning I milk the doe out. That's how that gets done. So, we probably milk about, I don't know, for 3. Yeah, I want to say 3 months straight. That's the hay barn. And then the horses, I get a couple of horses down in the, yeah. And so it's open for them below, and then the hay gets stored up above. Yeah. And they're all born here. They're all born here, except for that white, the really large white one. Yeah. She was not, but everybody else was born here. Yeah, I'm getting ready to make soap actually, because I'm running out of produce. So these are the oils I use, and then I've got goat's milk that I use in the freezer, and then those are the products that come out of that. So, and this is the box the soap gets poured into, and then I put wood and blankets over it, and because it's got to saponify. The fats and the lye mixture have to bond, and then after 24 hours, the soap gets taken out of the tray, and I use this counter, and then it's got to sit. I had a sheep come here, a big ram. Yeah, it was huge. Yeah, he just showed up. And well, I tried catching him up in the woods one day. My neighbor told me that there was a ram loose out there, so then I couldn't catch him. And so then I was out here, working and stuff, and then all of a sudden he just showed up. He showed up right here, and my whole herd of goats were right here wondering what I was doing. And they saw the ram, and they all took off into their corral because they think they're safe in there. If the door, they are safe in there, but it was just kind of funny. This ram just showed up out of nowhere. The dog surprised him enough. That one does. Well, she does too, but you know, they
look
get
kinda
rambunctious.
They look kind of like foxes, so I can sort of see why.
Well, this one is named Foxy, and a couple of weeks ago I was down there on the bank and I was calling Foxy, and it was actually a real fox. Wow. I got close to it, I was like, oh my God, it's a fox. And why it was here was because Foxy went and stole some of her, it must have been, she stole something out of the den.
How many times have the goats tried to eat your clothing?
Oh, all the time, yeah. They try to eat clothing all the time.
They seem very interested in the camera.
Yeah, really? Yeah. They're usually interested in anything that you're doing, you know, anything you're doing, they'll be interested in.
Hi, I'm Janelle Wilkins. I'm the event manager here with the Quonquat Farm, and you are in our event facility here. We are a 5,000 square foot building, and we do a lot of weddings and other special events here. We're able to seat up to 200 people. We provide our clients with tables and chairs and lots of space for a good time. Out back we have a lovely patio, which is where we typically hold social hours for our events. It's a great spot to enjoy the property and enjoy some food and beverages. And then we have a couple ceremony locations on the property as well for our wedding clients. One of them is just straight ahead in the lawn, and we have apple orchards on the property as well for pick your own fruit, and ceremony locations there as well.
It's a little hideaway. You wouldn't expect it to be.
I know. We're definitely kind of a hidden gem for people, so it's fun when they can come out and see how beautiful the property is and what a nice job everyone's done on it. So we have been a functioning event space for almost 5 years now, and the farm itself has been in operation for much longer than that. We used to be a dairy farm, and then the current owners have owned the property and breathed some new life into it for about 15 or 16 years now. It's beautiful here in the fall. Every season's my favorite season here. The only famous guest that I know of is Rachel Maddow was here a couple years ago now. So we opened May 1st for the season, so I've been giving tours and all that good stuff. So we have quite a few weddings starting right in the beginning of May. A couple nonprofit events come in as well. So yeah, we've got a busy season ahead of us. We run May through October.
My name is Leslie Harris, Leslieharris, and I'm the farm manager here at Quonquat Farm and Orchard. Well, Quonquat has been around since the 1920s in some capacity or another. We were originally a big dairy farm that was famous around the country for the quality of its cattle and the production of milk. And today, since the 70s actually, Quonquat has been known as a pick-your-own fruit orchard. So we have blueberries, peaches, and apples in season between July and October every year. This time of year is a dormant time of year for all of our fruit trees and bushes. They're just now coming into bud. So we spend, most people think farmers take like the time off at this time of year, but in fact we have just completed the pruning of our blueberry patches. So that took months to do. We have about 1,800 blueberry patches or blueberry bushes, and each one of those blueberry bushes gets individual attention, and you have to make sure that the bush is growing well and succeeding. One of the really wonderful things about Quonquat Farm is we embrace our wildlife population. We believe there's food enough for everybody. We have wildlife cameras around our property that keeps track of all the comings and goings of the critters we share our farm with, and that includes everybody from beavers to muskrats to blue herons and green herons, a variety of different types of birds, and we also have bears and bobcats and deer and rabbits and a whole glorious panoply of animals that we like to share our orchards and fields with. And we also are very interested in maintaining a healthy pollinator population. So we have, you can't see it now because nothing's quite in flower yet, but we have a whole range of flowers that bloom at different times of year to encourage pollinators to come first to pollinate our orchards, and then also to stick around for a little longer and pollinate the flowers that are here. So imagine this when it's going to be lush and green and colorful and filled with juicy fruit.
Oh, I'm Miriam Boudry, and this is Tallgrass Farm.
Stop it. Stop it.
have pregnant girls, open girls, and last year's Korea. These are last year's Korea. Come on. It's okay. Come on. Missy, come on. Come on. Hey. Come on. Let's go.
You can come in.
These are last year's Korea, and they were born between June and August. We like to have spring births. It gives them the benefit of the sunshine and lush pastures, and they get a little weight on before the winter. So right now they're weaning, and during that time we teach them how to walk on lead, and they get their toenails trimmed for the first time. They get their first series of shots. But pretty much alpacas are quite an easy livestock to maintain. They get a yearly rabies and CDT shots, and they graze on the pasture, and they get a grain and a second cut hay. They're raised for their fiber. Their fiber is comparable to cashmere. So now the fiber industry is really coming along in the United States. And anywhere from sports coat and overcoats to upholstery, rugs, you name it. Plus they have a wonderful compost. We have our manure pad back there. And pretty much it goes as quick as we get it in the summertime. People come and get truckloads of it. It's not a harsh manure, so it could be fresh, and you put it, you dig a hole, you put it in the hole, you put a plant right on top of it, and it thrives. It really does wonderful things for your for your gardens. Llamas start at about 200 and go up to like 300, or whereas an alpaca is going to top out at 200. In fact, I only have one female on my farm that weighs that much. The alpaca is bred really primarily for their fiber, whereas a llama is a pack animal. They're quite friendly. They really have their own little personalities. So they get shorn once a year, usually in May in New England, and we belong to the New England Fiber Co-op. So they get our harvest, and in turn we get finished goods, socks and hats and mittens and scarves. And alpaca can be worn by anybody. Some people that have a wool allergy won't have it with the alpacas. There's no lanolin in their fiber. It's very clean. So you could actually shear it and spin it right into yarn, whereas sheep or wool, you would have to scour. Oh gosh, she's got our little wire there.
And so you go to shows.
Yep, we actually compete. Our first show is going to be at the Big E. It's the North American Alpaca Show, and this year they're combining it with the Northeast Alpaca Expo, which is usually held in Syracuse. So these are moms. We just had the vet out, and we have 4 pregnant for this year. There's actually 22 natural colors of alpacas. It's the widest range of color in any fiber-bearing animal in the world. So you have from pure white to jet black, a variety of different grays, tans. There's even, she almost has like a maroon color to her fiber. When they get shorn, we use every bit of their fiber, but the prime fiber is their blanket, which would be this area here, and then their neck and leg fiber are seconds and thirds, and that's used for socks or rugs. The prime blanket fiber is what you would be doing, anything that's really close to your skin, your sweaters and coats and scarves, mittens, hats. The big designers now are starting to utilize alpaca, which is a great thing. And a lot of your big name catalogs, LL Bean, and they're starting to feature alpaca apparel, which is a good thing.
Is anything you're wearing alpaca?
My socks. Alpaca socks are the best.
Oh, I bet.